Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Talking with Heathens. Here we are, another Wednesday, Papa.
Another one. What episode is this?
Number 32 this week. Number 32. Now we've had many other, forms of this show, but this is 32 episodes of this one, Talking with Heathens. So, what'd you think about the new intro for us, buddy?
I absolutely enjoyed it. I
Yeah,
enjoyed the music, enjoyed the cinematography, and the work put in.
yeah.
It was
I'm getting so
fantastic.
good at these. I am. So, how was your week, man? How was Papa's week this week?
It's been good. A little bit of road time today. I took Cindy down to visit the famous Margaret Moose for some tattoo work that she's getting done on her arm. Got an electrician coming in the morning to help finish up a few projects that we've got going here that are a little funky to my experience and knowledge when it comes to electric work. There's like a European model plug adapter thing that needs to happen for the sauna and getting the electric hook backed up down at the hut.
You said European. I just had a butthead moment. Sorry.
And I'm trying to work a few things out, manage a few things to be able to attend a sweat lodge ceremony that I've been invited to by a fantastic group of people doing some fantastic work in the state on Sunday. But it is a little bit of a drive, and I've got some things that I had planned for the day, but I'm going to see if I can work them out to be able to make it to that. It's an intense ceremony. It's a very wholesome, enriching ritual to be able to take part of. If you've never got to, if you're ever invited, don't skip on that opportunity.
Hopefully one day I'll get invited then. I want to sweat with a bunch of guys in a little hut.
And it's a bunch of us usually packed in there. This one I'm
Oh,
sure
I
will
bet.
be the same, and good folks in there doing good work.
It sounds really interesting though. I've never done a sweat lodge before. But yeah, I've had a good week myself too, buddy. I mean, it's been kind of a week of manifesting, a week of getting things done, things happening. Kind of one of those things that the universe is kind of like reassuring that a person's on the right path. So
Hmm.
it's been a really good week this week for me. To be fair, very exciting week to see certain things just kind of like happen and take off. And I had a post earlier this week that went completely viral out of nowhere. Just went like 8,000 people liked it. I'm like, what's going on here? It's a buffalo. And but the I keep, when I read stuff, I share it because I feel inspired by it. Something
Hmm.
about the message moves me, and that's why I share. I just never thought that that particular one would have resonated with so many people. But it was interesting to see because I was just manifesting this to happen a few days prior to it happening. I was, talking to the universe, saying, "Hey, guide me what you want me to do. It's your time. Let's show me the path." And then
Well,
next
I
thing,
absolutely loved that message in particular that you're talking about, the spirit or the essence of it being the world isn't crumbling because of evil happening or evil people. It's crumbling because the good people aren't standing up to it anymore. We're
and
not addressing it. And it speaks to responsibility and having a voice and speaking out with your voice. And that's so, so very important.
it
And
was it
so for
was it
that
was a
same
good week
person
though.
to be touched by it, it resonates and it tells you that it's not just you or I feeling this way. There are a lot of people that are feeling that and frustrated with what's happening in the world and ready to speak up about it.
And I'm glad that they did because I needed it, and apparently they needed it as well. And during that process, it boosted the page up to we've reached Inner Demon Media itself has reached 174,000 people in the last 4 days. 174,000 people. That's just amazing in my eyes.
It's a
Astounding.
big little audience.
Yeah, I want to also give a quick shout out to we are now airing. We're first time airing over on the Highland Support group. So hello to you guys. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in. As well, we all want to give a quick announcement. Well, not a quick announcement. I just want to give kudos to the team that we have here at Inner Demon Media and over on Heathen Nation. The admins and moderators over in the group have been doing a phenomenal job taking care of that group and keeping a nice positive flow going. So I want to give a shout out to Lisa. I want to give a shout out to Mary Beth, uh, Katrina, uh, Christy just joined us here recently. And I know I'm going to miss a few people. Lindsay as well. I know I'm probably going to miss somebody, but just know I appreciate you guys. So I'm giving you guys a shout out right now to let you guys know you guys are doing a phenomenal job over there in the group. So thank you, ladies and gents, for doing such good work over there and helping me. I'm showing some gratitude to you guys. So I really do appreciate it.
And
But
that's a work thing now. It really is. It's not just as easy as like, hey, I'm going to help moderate this group, but the way that social media runs, sometimes you have to play referee. You have to.
well,
mo-
there's a fine. You have to learn. You definitely have to. There's a skill to trying to micromanage people, because there's so many different personalities, and you got to try to get to know these people well enough to where you can base decisions or positions according to the personality. You don't want to say something that's going to cross somebody. You know what I mean? But there's a fine line. There's a skill. There's a magic to it. I'm the magic man. My magic fingers. Woo. I want to say hello to everybody here in the chat. Thank you all for tuning in. Hello, Mary Beth. Hello, Patrick. Good to see you, buddy. Hello, Richard. Good evening to you, Misty. Papa says right here, so awesome seeing so many friends on tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hello, Susie. Good to see you as well. We got unfortunately live has to do since we have to postpone the trip. I hate to hear about that. Look. Jesse got the joke, and he's a pooping too. And apparently, I'm going to take a guess because this popped up during the whole sweat lodge. Mary Beth wants you to take pics.
I'm doing it every day anyway, and we might as well be in a sweat lodge, depending on where at in the country you're living. We've had some warm days this summer so far, a little bit warmer than normal.
But tonight we have a great guest on tonight. I've had a brief conversation with him. We've met. We talked for a little bit. Kind of got an idea of who we are as individuals. Tonight we have the president of the Three Little Sisters publication and the author of Riding the Bones. Everybody, please welcome tonight on the show Larisa Hunter.
Hi, what a wonderful intro. Thank you. I love the music, by the way. That was amazing. And the video, too. That was just really amazing.
Oh, you guys could be in a treat for tonight then, if you really enjoyed the video. Because a lot of my well, Papa knows how my one of my main missions is bringing awareness to mental illness, addictions, things like that. So I've been really inspired the last few couple of weeks, and I've been taking songs by major label bands and taking their songs and making my own videos, because music's all about the perception of what you hear and what lesson or a story or inspiration you're pulling from that song. So I've been really inspired by some bands we got tonight. Let me get to it real quick. 3 songs as always, and tonight we have 10 years and a video that I made called I Remember. We have Papa Roach, leader of the Broken Hearts, a video that I made tonight, and a brand new song that just came out. Video just came out yesterday by the band In This Moment. It's called The Purge. So we got a great lineup of music for you guys tonight, as well as we got Larisa here on the show too. It's a double banger tonight.
It's really nice for you to invite me. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for being on the show. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself to everybody here.
Well, my name is Larisa Hunter, and currently I'm residing in a place called Waianae, Hawaii, which is on the west coast of Oahu. And I own the Three Little Sisters. We are a heathen-centered publishing house, but we do offer services to others outside of heathenry. We've published a lot of big name authors such as Stephen Grundy, or as a lot of people would know him, Kadolfur Gunderson, as well as Maria Kilpahog, and a lot of other people too, including myself. So we have a lot of big people here, some new to the community, some very long time heathens, so a mix of everybody. I've been doing this for probably 18 years, and in the last 5 years, we've just noticed an influx in interest in specifically heathenry as a practice and the religious faith, and definitely an interest in its practices, both ancient and new. So my focus has been trying to get information out there in a way that's comprehensible to people, that is not overwhelming, more inclusive to a bunch of different communities, to be more intersectional in our practices, and to bring my feminist rage towards heathenry to change it and transform it for the better.
That's good for you.
Let's rock and roll.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about who is Larisa. Give us a little bit of background about yourself. What got you to this point?
Originally, I was writing and publishing just by myself. I was actually picked up by a publisher called Mannion Press years ago when I wrote my first book called Embracing Heathenry. And in that story, I was just trying to express what it was like to convert from Christianity to heathenry. I was born and raised in a cultish Christianity called the Jehovah's Witnesses. My father actually was and still is one of the large elders for the Bethel in Canada. So I'm originally Canadian and transplanted to the US about 10 years ago now. So my journey was pretty long to get to a place where I felt comfortable calling myself a heathen and practicing heathenry. But I was still very floundering around in the community, not quite sure where I felt I fit. And I was always striving to look for that thing that would be like, oh, this is it, eureka, I found my place. And that was really found through writing. And I journaled a lot about my own personal story, my survival through abuse, and basically finding others who felt the same way as I do, a little bit lost, a little bit broken, and kind of gathered those people together accidentally in a way to form the Three Little Sisters. So I met my vice president, Shiel, in a group that was for indie authors. She helped do my first book cover, and she was really excited to come in and help me establish something new. And she was a practicing druid, so her and I kind of filed alignment in our pagan views. And then I met my other partner, Sarah, in a group that we were helping form, and she's just been an inspiration and a light for bringing our creativity forward. And the three of us together decided to make a real go of this and bring authors on board slowly over time. And it's just been snowballing from there. And I can't believe in the last 15, 16 years how much we've expanded and grew, as well as changed our own views. Initially, when I first got to heathenry, I didn't hold the views that I have now. But slowly over time, as more things transpired in my personal life, it started reflecting my spirituality, especially around the last election. That's when I started getting a calling in myself to be more activist. And I was trying to figure out how to do that. What would that look like for me? And so I started making little moves in my life that were towards that bend. And then everything in my life changed pretty radically after that. Started getting passed around to different gods, basically, and started with Odin and followed through to Frigga when I was a mother and going through pregnancy, and then given to hell.
That was the next thing I was going to ask you, is how far back does your path begin?
It begins basically when I was 21. I left an abusive situation I was actually rescued by my current husband. He went to the house that I was living in and took me out of that situation.
Good for him.
Yeah, he was my best friend in high school, and we had kept in touch over the years. He was going through a separation, but one day I was just brave enough to tell him where the marks on my body were coming from, and he just, being the person that he is, went, we're going to your house right now, and you're just leaving. We're not doing this anymore. And so in that very one moment, my life completely changed.
Now, was he practicing?
No, he was actually, well, he's been off and on kind of all over the place. His first wife was a Catholic, so he converted to Catholicism. He was raised pretty like abstract Christian. So his parents are who are lovely people, raised him to be sort of like I would say like very liberal Christian. To go to church on Sunday, but that's about it.
Practicing.
Yeah, like like a typical person. Like Canada is pretty broad in its religious practices, but most people are like generic Christian. They go to church on Sunday, and that's pretty much it. Or holidays.
Here in America, I think generic Christian be like uh, Christmas time and Easter is about the only two times that you'd ever catch my
Yeah,
parents going to church.
that's pretty
Mhm.
much what he
And
grew up with.
I think a
And
lot
I
of
mean,
people just say that they identify as Christian, even though they
yeah,
don't really practice at all. They don't pray, they don't attend service or
yeah.
any of the activities involved in the religion, but they'll just say that they're Christian. Through
Yeah,
the,
like he was baptized and all that stuff, like most people. I mean, I think that unless you are lucky enough to grow up in a country that doesn't have Christianity as its foundation, that's pretty much everyone's life. Like they're baptized as a child and you don't know anything about the faith, you're just raised in it. And it was the same for me. Like, even though I was part of a really crazy Jehovah's Witness cult, I didn't really understand what I was worshiping. I was just, that was what I was raised in. Like, so I think a lot of us grew up like that, not knowing what our parents really believed or what church really represented. So like he's comes from that sort of vein. But he always had his toes dipped in different things. He was a metalhead, so he kind of drifted in and out of like he liked Satanism for a while. He went to earth-based religion, so he's been all over the place. And I guess just us meeting on a chance meeting one time, it was just ended up being that the feelings for each other were still there after being in high school together for years. And we just kind of fell back in love, and that just happened. And so we've been together ever since for 18 years, and we have a beautiful daughter. And, I couldn't be happier. He's never done anything to me, and nor would I let anybody do that to me again. But he made me realize what my value was as a person, and it took a lot
And that's
in me
kudos
to
to
realize
him.
that. Yeah,
Kudos for him being that guy to uplift his wife to that point. Because there's a lot of men out there that like to drag their ladies down a bit, and that make them feel like they're inferior to themselves. I'm the man of the house. My way or no way. And it's really good to hear a story about another man out there uplifting a woman and making her feel as an equal and not beneath them. So bravo to him. What's his name?
Tim, and
Tim.
he's
Bravo to you, buddy.
the love of my life. And honestly, he is like true and true feminist, and one of the biggest male advocates for women in his industry. He's really hardcore. Like he believes women should have equal standing in the world, and I really appreciate his view on that. But that's basically how I got, you know, to with
So,
him, and then it just
so when you
took some
guys got
crazy.
together,
Yeah.
was he trying something out and it caught your interest and it kind of started you on your path?
Well, it just sort of was a conversation we were starting to play around with. Like, I started knowing pretty soon after I got together with him that Christianity was going to be a thing I would leave in the dustbin of history and not remember that I went through all that trauma for 18 years. So I was more than willing to be like, okay, universe, like, I'm good. I'm open. What do you got? And I was actually really interested in the Egyptian pantheon for a while. I think a lot of people are. It's kind of cool, hip pantheon that has like a lot of cool gods in it. But it just wasn't really appealing to me as much as I wanted it to. And so I started exploring other pantheons. I went to a few like pagan centered events in Canada. We actually have a pretty thriving pagan community, especially in Ontario where I was living. So they had a few like Wiccan fests and pagan events that you could go to. And I met a whole bunch of people there, everybody from the Wiccan Church of Canada to practicing like Asatru people to like voodoo people. So there's like like you could just go and like sample different rituals. They had like public rituals where you could just go and see what it was, talk to people. So that was really like where I kind of dipped my toes into trying like different things until I just happened upon an Asatru ceremony, and that's where I was like, this is it. This is what I should be doing. Like, where was this all my life? um, and it was just sort of like the things they were saying and the way they were talking, and especially the way they spoke about women's importance and how strong everything sounded to me. It was just where I needed to be in my life. So that's sort of where like the little push came from of like, you need to go figure this out. And I was warned at the very beginning that by the leader of that ritual that day, when I came up to him afterwards and was like, I think I kind of want this to be my path. And he was like, okay, well, here's a list of like 500 books that you and I was like, whoa, what?
Wait a minute. Maybe
I should
But then you've taken that list and you've added your own books to it. And just what you had mentioned earlier, it was one of the first that you wrote, if I'm remembering right, was a bit of your experience in that transition.
Yes. Yeah.
And I would love to be able to, by the end of the show, get a link up to that book if it's available to the public, because there are so many people out there going through that same transition right now that feel absolutely alone. Um, the birth of social media has helped to see there are many, many other people out here like me or feeling like me, but at the same time, to be able to read somebody's story and connect that way, I think is a really awesome, awesome thing that a lot of people could jive with and appreciate. So I would love to get a link up to that book
I
for
am
you.
getting the link up into the chat right now. So
And
Yeah, I'm
I'll
working
Joe is
on
recommend it to people
I
as
am
well.
revamping it a little bit because when I originally wrote it, there was a lot of quotes in there were from people who now we find out are pretty white supremacists. So I'm trying to or change a lot of the book to reflect my current views and also to get rid of all those people because obviously they're not somebody I would want to follow at all. I didn't even know that was something they were holding.
And
um,
that's an absolutely normal thing. We
yeah.
change and we grow, we develop and we find our way. And
Yeah, that's what I think is beautiful about heathenry and specifically is that it's supposed to be a religion that you evolve with. And I think over the years that's what's been happening to me. Um, but that was my first kind of revelation that this was something I wanted to do. And then over time, I started finding more and more people um, that I wanted to hang out with. I learned from, I was very lucky to be passed around to people who were very long term heathens who were helping me like just understand anything about the faith, anything about the myths, anything like it was a complete like I was ready to just sink my teeth into it, and I did. And I felt like I went to the University of Heathenry 101, and it was like just an inundation of material, and I became like a sponge. And I was just like, okay, give me more, give me more. And eventually I got to a place where I ran my own groups and did my own kindred stuff and did that for a while. Went around the lecture circuit of Canada, did a few rituals at the Wiccan Fest, got to meet so many beautiful people, and it was a really amazing time. And then once the publishing house started, that's kind of my life went from being outside to being more insular. So I was kind of like chained to my desk a little bit, but
well, that publishing company. I mean, I guess it's how you look at it, though. Too. I mean, you're still creating the magic. You're creating these books. You're giving people an outlet to write and put books out themselves. So you're creating this huge vortex of magic just within the publishing business. You're giving a lot of people a lot of opportunities that normally they wouldn't have.
True. And I kind of feel like this is where the gods kind of led me. They kept putting me in people's way. And deliberately, I felt, because everybody I met was just one step more into something that I knew that there was something happening to me. And I knew it was I just wasn't aware what. And so I would just let it happen. And I kind of surrendered myself to whatever process was going to be there. And so little by little, I was just introduced to like the next person, the next person, the next person. And I kind of felt like this seems to be very intentional.
It's really unique to be able to like kind of give it all to the universe. Like, all right, I'm letting you run things. I'm just going to go with the flow. I'm just going to hop on my surfboard and ride this wave, and whoever you bring in my life. And it's not easy because you meet, hey, but you meet these people in your life. They come in, they come out. They go in, they come out. So it's not an easy path, but every person that you encounter is another step, another level to where you're ultimately going to be at. You needed these people in your life at that time, and
Exactly.
it's a unique experience being that way, because I kind of surrendered it all too, and a few years back, like, all right, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this what I'm doing right now, and I couldn't be more happier. I'm glad that I trusted the process.
Me
Yeah,
too.
I
Like
would
I'm
like
glad
to ask a question
retrospectively now. Yeah, I'm glad now,
while
but it
we're
was scary
still.
at the time, but I'm glad I did it. Yes. Sorry, Papa, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to ask a question while we're still on um, Larissa and your backstory and everything like that, but also into the reading and books. And we would just mention the publishing and the birth of the publishing house. We have a ton of people in the audience uh, here this evening and that will watch it later that are very much into that Norse paganism or Norse pantheon. But we've not got to have a ton of people on as a guest that are versed in Norse mythology. So I would like to ask you, do you feel the same I do in maybe comparing Norse mythology to some of the other stories that we've read as fable, where there's a lesson to learn?
Yes, I definitely think that there's way more nuance. I think people take the mythology way too seriously and literally, and it's really shouldn't be. The stories are much more poetic in nature, and like you said, are more akin to fable. Like you have to take
There's
these
a story,
things.
there's a lesson, and some
Yeah,
people
there's a story, there's a lesson, there's a parable, but there's also little like tiny little droplets of like you could seriously read the myths and find your path very quickly if you know where to look. But it's willing to read it in a way that's less literal and more allowing yourself to be swept away in the story. And that's something you only get if you read them like fables. Like when your parents used to read you, bedtime stories like Arabian Nights or whatever, your mind goes to these places and you can imagine these things and put yourself in this completely fantastical world. And we should do the same with these mythological stories because honestly, when you do that, you actually reconstruct what Odin looks like in your mind, and by reconstructing him and putting him there, you give him new life. Like I kind of feel very similar to the author Neil Gaiman that by articulating Odin, by calling upon him, by visualizing him, you give him power. And so, like you are participating and worshiping him, even if you don't realize it or not actively even want to do that. Passive worship is valid to me.
that's how we honor our ancestors. We put that picture of them up, and we remember their name, and we remember their stories, and we honor them by keeping them alive in our stories and our memory. And so much of their long life or their life after life comes from us keeping it. So I
Yeah,
love
they
that. I love
just
that
yeah.
analogy.
But yeah, 100%. And I often tell people not to take the myths so literally because they really are not supposed to be read that way. Um, and
It's
shouldn't
called
be
the
seen
poetic Edda.
right. Not the 100 lessons that Odin gave you, because obviously we still have witches that we need to vanquish by shutting doors on them. It's not. This isn't literal stuff, and so you have to stop taking it so literally.
The
The
only
half
thing
is
literal
not
about it was
lessons for
the fact
life.
that it was poetry. It was poetry.
Exactly. And it's supposed to be teaching you lessons on living and also living with respect to the land and the gods around you and the spirits within that land. And it's more about that and how you participate in the ecosystem that is
In
worship.
harmony.
Yeah, and like that's why I kind of like animism for this because I think that you can't be a Nordic heathen without animism because that's just part of it. So
You just made
um,
Papa's soul just tickled to death there when you
I'm
said
over
that.
here just gleaming. Like,
yeah, like to me there's no separation because you have to believe that everything has its own animus and soul, including a passive animus that you create every time you visualize the gods. To me, like worship doesn't have to be an active thing that you're doing. I kind of like a woman that I know named Natalia Lee. She did some research, anthropological research on heathens, And one of the things she said is eventually you migrate to a living heathen. You are just exuding it all the time, worshiping all the time without actively doing anything because you're just living it.
Yeah,
And that's
you can study the past, but you've got to let the past catch up to now, and now you live it, and that's the way you
right.
carry it forward.
Exactly. And so I think there just comes to be a point where everything you do is done through a heathen lens. And for me, that was my crux of realizing that, like, okay, I'm ready to open the next door, which was diving into the death and dying research. So like that was where I was ready to go to the next step. Like I've got the living part down. Now what? So like I was willing to look at like what's beyond that. Because I had decided a long time ago that I was going to be willing to surrender myself to them. And their path for me was, you're going to do this publishing house because we're telling you, and that's what you're going to do. And you're also going to, you're going to do what we say. And if you do what we say, everything will be fine for you. And I pretty much accepted that. So it's been a very long road of finding different sources and different materials that I could get access to that weren't just like, here, read Snorri Edda, or here, read, another book that was written by esoteric heathen number 42. Like I needed something more broad. So I went to fables, folklore, anthropology, archaeology. I attended lectures from Nordic archaeologists just to understand, like, what were they thinking when they developed these theories? Because I had theories of my own, and I wanted to know how they would put these pieces together. So I guess my mind kind of works like that in a more detective formula. Like I want to know where my thoughts come from and how to align them in a real way, because I didn't want to seem like every time I wrote something, it was all like made up out of the ether. I wanted it to have some teeth to it. So I wanted to find sources, because I realized that the only way you could convey information in heathenry is to prove yourself. So I was going to find the sources if it killed me. And that was my mission. I was like, I'm going to find the sources because I have a concept in my mind, and I'm going to let's just see if I can find it, if it's true or not.
Yeah, you got to get to the roots. So many people want to grab a hold of a branch and hold on to that branch, but that branch comes from a trunk, and that trunk comes from roots. And so you've got to know everything before, if you're really going to hold on to that branch firmly.
Yeah. And not to
you might find out
go too much backwards. Exactly. But not to go too much backwards. But when I was a little girl, even though I was raised in a very traumatic cult and stuff, and my parents were kind of crazy people, but the one thing they gave me, I will say, was that my dad always gave me an inquisitive nature into history. And he used to take me to the museums and be like, wow, look at these mummies. And as a Jehovah's Witness, that was really taboo. Like my dad was pretty criticized by the church, because he was like, you're letting your daughters learn things, like, oh my God, what's next? Their ankles are going to show. Like it was just, he was nuts, but it wasn't usual to give your daughters this much exposure to like anything that was outside the church.
Science.
So it was the one thing I was grateful for, was that, yeah, he had a mind for science. He was an engineer. He liked to see how the way things worked. And the same with my grandfather. Like he would take apart old clocks and things. So like we were exposed as children to this insane need to understand things and rationalize things and reason things that I don't think most average people in that community would have had. And so that kind of helped me when I was ready to split and move. My analytical brain like kicked into gear, like, okay, let's go find the truth. Like, let's remember that you know how to do that,
So I think we're going to take a quick break. We're going to play some music for you guys. When we come back, we'll still be talking with Larisa. We're going to be talking about the publishing company, The Three Little Sisters, and we'll be talking about your new book, Writing the Bones, as well. So guys, stick where you're at. Go grab a drink, come back, enjoy the music, and we'll be right back as you guys are watching Talking with Heathens.
Hey, this is Josie Scott, the original OG lead singer of Saliva, and you are watching Inner Demon Media. Release your inner demons. We all have demons. We just don't try to hide them.
Fantasies, wasted dreams I was chasing. Be careful what you wish for, you just might get it. Nothing's what it seems when our dreams wake up and vanish into the air. I'm hanging on by a thread, just a memory left for dead and gone forever. Gone forever. Can I survive burning lights, blinded by the bright side that I remember? I remember. We are never what we intend or envision, only a copy of a compromised creation. Always trying to find paradise and a destination. Nothing's what it seems when my dreams wake up and vanish into the air. I'm hanging on by a thread, just a memory left for dead and gone forever. Gone forever. Can I survive burning lights, blinded by the bright side that I remember? I remember. We vanish into the I'm hanging on by a thread, just a memory left for dead and gone forever. Gone forever. Can I survive burning lights, blinded by the bright side that I remember? When I remember, we vanish into the
Welcome back, everybody, to Talking with Heathens. We're hanging out with Larisa Hunter, and that was 10 years with their new song, I Remember. Hope you guys go check them out. It's a good song right there.
It's a fantastic work on the video as well, Sid.
Yeah, I had fun doing that one. I had fun, yeah. But it's not about me and my videos. It's about Larissa and her book publishing company and her book, Writing the Bones. So, Larissa, tell us a little bit about this book, Writing the Bones.
This project was really came sort of in a conversation that we had as partners. My two partners, Gial and Sarah, and I always have a meeting every Monday with what's going down at the publishing house, who's next, etc. And we were just chatting about a concept that I had. I was wrestling with some feelings that I had about losing my mom, unfortunately, to suicide 5 years ago, and I kept
sorry to hear
having
that.
this. Yeah, it's a thing, but I was encountering the same issue over and over again in heathenry, where I kept getting told to worship my ancestors, worship my ancestors, worship my ancestors. And at some point, this actually started to get really on my nerves, because for me, my ancestry meant my trauma. Both my parents had very deep psychological issues. I was raised in a very abusive home. My grandparents were not any better. I come from a very long line of broken people. So I didn't really feel like this was the type of people I wanted in my life anymore. didn't want to keep inviting them in. And there was no further back for me. But weirdly, in my history, both my grandfathers on both sides, my maternal and paternal, were both adopted. So I don't know anything about their families. Um, and so my history sort of became a problem for me. And I couldn't really wrestle or reconcile with that and wanting to be a full heathen who was doing all the things that she needed to do to be practicing herself. And that sort of led to a place of me being really conflicted with what to do. Um, and so I was talking about this with my partners because I was like, guys, I think I'm ready to kind of like write this book, but I'm not sure how it's going to be perceived because I'm kind of going to tear this concept down because I've been doing a little bit of reading, and some of this ancestor stuff, I don't know, doesn't seem exactly in alignment with some things that I'm coming across. So I really want to take this on. Like, what if ancestor worship didn't really mean like physical person that you were related to? What if there was some other way of being a heathen? Like, can we find that? So that's where it kind of started. And then it spiraled from that to not just being about ancestor worship in particular, but about how death is different in different forms at different stages, and not necessarily a physical death, but that death could be a slow stage towards transformation. And that you could use death and its metaphors to find not only your path, but what you're supposed to do. It could be the push that you need to find your way to the gods.
Now, could you writing this book be a process of breaking that family cycle as well?
Yeah, part of it was that. A lot of, if you are triggered at all by stories of traumatic abuse, the book is going to be hard for you. But I wrote about it very openly, about the things that I had experienced personally, and how each of those traumas were a miniature death for me, how I lost my innocence as a child, how I lost, my confidence, my self-worth. And then through those losses, learned that when I came out of it, I realized that actually it wasn't really a loss. Some of it was really bad, but a lot of it was transformative, and it made me who I was. And the stronger I became, the closer and closer I got to my gods. That was what was fascinating to me. Like, the more trauma, the more pain I experienced, the further it pushed me to the very far left, and finding gods that would align in that space for me. And for me, it aligned, like, not just spiritually, but politically, emotionally. And it just all kind of hit ahead when I was watching one of my favorite podcasts called The Majority Report. And they had this lovely author on who was talking about this book called Abolitionist Feminist Now. And she just hit me like a ton of bricks with what she said. And it was just this little thing about how, as a white feminist, had pretty much destroyed the movement because they took it away from the voices who started it. And for some reason, I don't know why, because it wasn't related to anything that I was thinking about at the time, that just kind of pushed me over the edge. And then I realized that what she was saying, a lot of it could be applied also to the way we view heathenry and the way we've been exclusionary to certain types of people and certain groups of people. And we needed to change that. If we want to really stand for what heathenry means, we have to be willing to stand in the way and stand up for what's right. And that means fighting for what's right and not just sitting by and letting horrible things happen.
I have to say,
It all boils down to respect. But I would love to commend you and kudos on having that courage and
you're taking my
share
words
your
away,
story in that book. Absolutely. And to also take a moment to maybe clear the air for a few people or anyone watching that ancestral veneration and being heathen, it's not like there is nowhere that says anywhere that you are required to trace your line back to 20 generations. We don't really think about it because we're reading the stories of these long family lines that are recorded. That's the sagas that we read. But adoption isn't a new thing. Adoption has always happened. And think about the mortality rate back in 500. People were dying, mothers were dying, fathers were dying at war in the field, mothers were dying in childbirth. Adoption to take care of a baby was a more common thing than maybe even now. So to know your lineage, to know your history, to know your family, it's not a requirement. It's not something that you must do. You can connect with those ancestors by spirit if you want to, but there is nowhere that it's written down in black and white that you must. You must do this, you must do that. It's your life, it's your path, it's your faith. And where you connect is what's going to really work in your heart.
Exactly. And that's what I was trying to confront, exactly what you said, because it seemed like it just this constant bashing of people who don't have a direct it just sounds too much like white purity. And I think that there's a lot of racism that could be uncovered there if you really keep saying to people, you have to keep go back, find your line, find your line, find your line, as if there's like some like I have to find like a pure drop of Viking blood somewhere. Like it's weird, and you have to stop saying it because it doesn't sound right. If you think about what that means, like there is no such thing. Like, and we have to stop like making it happen, because you may find people that sure came from Scandinavia or whatever, but those people were also from somewhere else too. And so like cultures didn't happen in little teeny weeny little bubbles. And so we're all human. And so like stop trying to find this like missing Augsburg priestess relative that you have, because you don't have one. Like it's okay.
I think we're losing it. I think we're losing it for two reasons. One is going to be ego.
Yes.
Just to say that I came from this line, and Canute, King Canute, or Ragnar, or somebody. The ego reason is one reason. And then there's the positive reason where we want to trace our line, because at the end of the day, we do owe veneration for the very life that we live, because if not for that ancestor, if not for our mother's mother, our mother's mother's father, our grandparents, that line, we wouldn't be here today. And there's a real way to connect in that ancestral veneration, because if there's going to be anybody watching out for you now, those gut feelings, those instincts, intuition, it's those ancestors helping to guide you, because they have a vested interest in your success, in your well-being. And
yeah. And for me, that just came to be the gods. Like for me, there wasn't. I didn't find this need to like. I felt like to me there was a pathway and a way that the gods could take place of the ancestor, and so like you don't have to have a person. You can just, and we wrote a lot about it in Writing the Bones. You could make this like artificial grandmother almost, like materialize her or him, like grandfather, grandmother, doesn't matter. You could materialize them from the ether that exists, because there's
the spirit of.
Yeah, exactly. Like a cave could be your grandmother, like a rock could be your grandmother, a tree could be your grandmother. Like it doesn't have to be a physical being or person. So you could look at people like me who have extensive trauma in their life, could choose to say like, well, you know what, if I can't find anybody, but I really do want to still have that like connection there. Okay. Then my grandmother is going to be like this river or this rock or that tree or whatever. And like, that's how I see my
in heathenry and paganism, to personify. We see it in the goddess Sana or Soul, Mani in Norse paganism. We personify. We create these things in a spirit by actual physical bodies or entities, and deify them as a way to relate or to connect.
Yeah, and that's what writing the bones was supposed to be about. And it was also a way for me to get rid of my trauma through, I used my mother's death as sort of a way to talk about one aspect of ancient practice, which kind of relates to what you're saying about learning how to personify something else or deifying something else, because the thing we want to deify may not be may not be the thing you want. I'm not going to say not worthy, because every person is worthy regardless of how much of a horrible being they are. But more like it's not somebody you want to call towards you because you don't want that energy there. So there was a practice often, and it was pretty much deconstructing or dehumanizing the person. So they would take the body and literally destroy it, like take it apart, use pieces of it to manufacture things. They would eat it, consume it, burn it, vanquish it into different pieces, so that that spirit of that person was no longer there. And that was done because the family did not want that energy anywhere near them, but they wanted the power of that. So they would take pieces of the body, let's say, and bury it in a mound. And then they would say, okay, that's no longer grandma. Okay, that's just a battery pack. So I'm going to also bury this sword here. And that sword's going to be imbued with whatever power hell wants to send back into that sword through this offering. And so it would be used like commodity. You would say, okay, I'm going to give you 2 heads in exchange for a sword. And I'm very much rudimentarily explaining this, but there was this economy of basically giving sacrificial victims in return for power. So
everything's exchange.
Yeah, exactly. There was an exchange. So you would bury the person that you either loved or didn't love, and you would get back a sword of power or a necklace of power or a seed of power. And this was a way that people could honor the gods, but also transform the person, especially if they weren't necessarily a very good person, because feeding them to the god would dissolve them of whatever they did in that human life. And in the afterlife, they can transform into something else. So it would be a way, in my mind, going through what I was going through at the time, it was a way to clean my mother and transform her into something else, so that I could let go of that trauma and bury it, and send that, and basically say to hell, you can take all the garbage, okay, and then send me back something nice. I'm giving her to you fully. Like, you can take her from me.
And what you did for yourself there is ritual. And
Yes,
so many people
exactly.
get confused, and they think that ritual must be something scripted. It must follow a certain arrangement. You have to do this, you have to do that. Ritual is personal.
Yes.
Ritual is not something that you're going to get out of a book. You can if you want to, but more often than not, if you're being genuine, ritual is going to come from your heart, your spirit, and it's going to come organic, just as you wouldn't have practiced that ritual had your mother not passed away. But
Yeah.
having done so, you felt called to, and you performed it and found healing in it.
Yeah,
That's
and
the
from that,
point. That's the purpose.
exactly. And from that healing, I realized that my pathway was going to take a very different route, and I started finding myself more in alignment of Dread Sisterhood, which is a practice of basically following very dark gods, but for a good purpose. So you channel that dark female energy into something positive. So I practice with Hell and Baba Yaga and what they would consider like dark gods, whatever. But to my mind, they are representing the things that we need right now, which is pushing community, helping women who might be needing services because they can't get them right now, hiding our trans fellows wherever we can, and being a refuge. And like, to me, each of those goddesses started representing like a movement in me that it sort of became like a transformational object. They became like houses for transformation.
Something else that I would like to point out while we're running on that stream, I definitely feel like a lot of what we're experiencing in the pagan community with sexism and bigotry is carryover from the Abrahamic religions. I'm not trying to point fingers or place blame, but they're very geared toward those things. Women being submissive, women falling in line or whatever. We've got a lot of people converting from Abrahamic religions, Christianity, coming over to paganism or pagan paths, and they're bringing those ideas or those indoctrinations with them and then trying to implicate it into what should be a very open, very free way of living for people, for all people. It was never this way before religion interjected into faith and spirituality.
Yeah, there's also like bro culture, like like I mean, Viking sounds really cool, but like it's
There's cis culture, but I think the great thing is that we're coming into a time where it's not about promoting masculinity or feminism. It's about healing together, coming together for healing. Because guys are missing out on that a lot. They don't feel there's anywhere safe for them to vent, to get those issues out without being made fun of or put down
Yes.
or hit or beat up for. Uh, so there are some positive works happening, and like what your work is in now um, with women. So
I agree.
yeah.
good stuff. Good
It's
stuff.
almost like she's my twin because every calls that she's pushing, everything she's talking about, it's like kind of a carbon copy of my story as well. And it's good. It's good. It takes a lot. Papa said earlier, it takes a lot of courage just to sit down and a lot of inner work as well because you're bringing up memories and things that's happened from your past and you're putting in the pen and paper and you're creating this book and then the process it's I'm sure it had to have been a little bit hard and ugly for you at times because you're as you're doing this, you're unknowingly working stuff out yourself. And then when you discover I am working this out, here you are. You're like building yourself back up again. All right, I need to get over this trauma, and this is the perfect way of doing it is writing it down. A lot of people are really scared, male or females, to talk about those traumas that's happened in their life because they're afraid that someone's going to say something to them or make fun of them or tease them or, oh, you had it this bad. Well, try this on for size. This is what I went through. And it's like it's not about comparing. It's about uplifting each other and supporting each other and giving everybody the opportunity to heal, but being able to have a voice doing it as well, and not without judgment, without prejudice, without pointing fingers. So good for you.
Yeah,
We're in the work of correcting the culture.
That's it.
We've
Yeah.
got to correct the culture.
it was difficult at times, but I did it so that people, like you said, couldn't be so afraid of talking about this kind of stuff. Like when you have a lot of baggage in your life and a lot of trauma and have been through a lot of things, it does kind of cloud up your mind a lot. And in order to get free of that, you have to do something with it. And so for me, writing was my way out. Embracing heathenry was just the door. And then I had an opportunity to write a fictional piece too called The Bone Jar, where basically my character is being hunted by a serial killer. But my character actually is telling my story if I didn't transform like I did. So she is like the evil alter of me. So it's like what would have happened to me if I did not change, and I let that trauma eat me, And so she becomes this very personally abusive person who's abusing herself, like trying to injure herself and harm herself, because I know what that feels like. And when Riding the Bones sort of came and happened, I realized that if I was really going to do this, like I had to let a lot of the pain go. And it's kind of a weird thing to say because I know like a lot of people in heathenry don't believe it or whatever, but for me, I felt like the gods were there for me while I was writing this. In particular, Hell was right beside me the whole time, saying like, you got this, I got you. Like, just keep feeding me your pain. And I would give it to her and type. And she was just like, that's right, just keep
Just
feeding
give you the pain
just-
and I'll
just give
inspire
me
you
the
to
pain.
write it down.
Right. You just type, okay? And it's not you going through it anymore, it's me. So she would let me like break away from me. So when I was typing, I felt like I wasn't even telling my own story. I could disassociate myself with what I was writing, which helped because, a lot of what I talked about was pretty painful. But the book is just more than that. It's all about how like this kind of pushes you to realize that there's something greater in life and that all the trauma that you've been through, all the things that you've experienced are actually really helpful when it comes to understanding gods like Hel, like Odin, gods that are injured, gods that don't look like other gods, especially like Loki. It makes you understand them because they are also broken and damaged, and broken and damaged people kind of flock together. So you just kind of understand them from a perspective that maybe someone who hasn't experienced trauma would understand, what they felt or what they feel about going through the things that they did. And so for me, I saw those gods as sort of like an example of like what I could survive. But we go into throughout the book like little hints and sort of introspective moments for readers to kind of take their breath, because we didn't want it to make it all trauma. So a lot of it goes into like the history, some stuff we found out about Hel. We did a lot of comparisons between Hel and the Morgan, because there's a lot of similarities and crossover between Celtic culture and Nordic cultures. And then we did our big piece called The One Time We Ate Grandma, which is where we talk about turning a body.
Delicious.
Yeah, yes, turning a body into a sacrificial object. And the book kind of ends with a way of you like understanding what to do next. And then we're actually we just finished the second book called Summoning the Bones. And that kind of goes into depth of like, okay, so you found yourself, you're in front of Hel, now what? And it sort of gives you a rough guide to like how to put together a form of worship that may work for you. With ancestors, without ancestors, with stuff, without stuff, minimal offerings versus maximum offerings. And we kind of like give you a broad range of things to do so that people can feel included no matter what their situation in life is, no matter what they have or don't have. We didn't want to make heathenry cost you money. Like, we just want you to be able to practice whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, with the stuff you have in your house. So like, there's lots of things in there to help people like just basically start with just like kitchen salt. So like we just kind of wanted to make something a little bit more easier for people to digest and not
we tend to overcomplicate those things when we think about them, don't we? There should be in our mind a level of pomp that comes to it.
Yeah, and you don't need that. And it's actually a lot harder to not have that, believe it or not. Like, it's harder to just be a practical day of the mill run around heathen that just like walks around your property and talks to birds. Like that actually seems kind of mad to most people.
Are you talking about me?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm very lucky to be where I live, and I'll talk about that next. But I mean, when I'm walking around, like, to me, being heathen means to just live your life in the hands of the gods, putting yourself last and them first. But that doesn't mean a dichotomy of like, oh, you're suppressed or under them. It just means that when you're doing your daily life, you think to yourself, like, you're driving to the store and you just think about Odin, you think about Hel, you think about them in your day, and that's it. Like, you took 2 seconds out of your life to say like, hey, Frey, what's up? How are you doing? Okay, good. Let's talk. And off you go. But that's worship. And I think heathens you don't have to have all these big ceremonies and ship burnings and rituals. Those are nice and they're really beautiful to be. And I don't have any problem with them. I just think that it's also okay when I'm in the kitchen making bread at Christmas with my daughter and we're doing like loaves of bread. We always think about like Freya or Frigga, and we're making the bread and we're thinking about the home. And we're like, oh, this would be really fun. I wonder what the gods would be thinking about this time of year. We just talk. And like that is enough. You are enough to do those things.
All right, guys, we're going to take ourselves another break. And we're going to come back, talk here with Larisa some more, the author of Riding the Bones and owner of the Three Little Sisters. We are going to be playing you guys now Papa Roach with their song Leader of Broken Hearts. Another one, Papa, that I made just to bring it up so you can brag about it when we're back. But stay where you guys are at. Hang out right here. Enjoy the video. We'll be right back, guys.
That's okay.
Hey, this is Rod from Just a Ride, and you're watching Inner Demon Media.
Release your inner demons.
Welcome back, everybody, to Talking with Heathens. We're hanging out here with Larissa, and that was some Papa Roach with Leader of the Broken Hearts. Welcome back, guys.
It was much different than the Papa Roach that I remember when I was a little bit younger, but I enjoyed it. It was very good.
He had his own battles with addiction and drugs and things of that nature, and he had Jacoby had to go through the same thing. Myself, Larissa, and you, and everybody else who's watching, he had to come face to face with a lot of his demons, and it just came out through his lyrics and through his songs, and healed himself through that method, just like what Larissa did with her books.
It's that outlet to have expression.
That's it.
Theirs was music. Larissa is writing. And yours is networking and creating and everything.
My
that
magic
you
fingers.
Yeah. But that's so important to have that outlet. That's where people run into trouble.
I don't know where I would be at.
To express themselves, who they really are. And that's, I think, the biggest trouble with the world. We've become so condemning, and we ridicule people so much, and we're down on people for expressing themselves.
I don't know where I would be at, to be honest, if I didn't have the ability to create these like videos, and I get a lot of my daily like messages that I do. It's a lot of it's just pulling from my past, some of the dark places from my past, and I'm bringing them forward in writing,
And
and
that's a healthy outlet.
it's
And when
for
you
me it's a
don't have
healthy
it, you
outlet.
turn to unhealthy outlets like drug
Keep it
abuse
in.
and alcohol and gambling or whatever it may be. But the soul or the spirit finds a way to express itself. So if you can't provide it or offer it a safe space to do that, or a constructive, positive space, then it goes a bad way.
Look at the
Totally.
comments here. Susie says here, I'm going to have a neck strain from nodding in agreement so much in tonight's show.
Susie, I'm doing the same thing over here. I might as well be listening to music. I'm over here just going with it.
But
Yeah, I have to say the same thing. Like a lot of what Papa said, a lot of what you said, I can totally like feel very simpatico here. Like in the things
We're
that you guys have
driving.
said, really, yeah, like it really resonates with me. So I appreciate that. It's not often you find people that you resonate with. Like you got to find your weirdos, right? So like you got to, and like I like finding my weirdos. So
We're still weirdos. We just got to be weirdos together.
yeah,
That's it.
exactly.
We got to do it together.
That's where all the cool people are. So like, you know.
Misty says here, it's been a great show. It has been a great show, and I just want to take a moment and say thank you, Larissa, for being so open about your story, how you came to be, your past, a bit of your story of your past, and talked a bit so in depth about the book as well, because it's really important that you became so vocal about some of the past traumas. And I'm a firm believer that getting it out, our bodies are like a sponge when it comes to trauma. We can take it, but eventually it starts filling up, that sponge, right? And it starts overfilling and going everywhere on the table or wherever it's at. So we got to once in a while take that sponge and kind of like squeeze all that water out to make room for more healthy ways of thinking and healthy ways of living our lives. And it's important to be able to talk about these things. And as a community, as a pagan community, we need to be more open to this idea of being more vocal about our traumas, because you never know what individual that may hear your story might need that piece of your story that might resonate with them. Like the childhood trauma that you experienced with the molestation. I experienced that as a man as well. And through my young years, from 9 till I was about 11 years old, I was molested by my dad's sister. And so, and I even told my parents. My parents told me, yeah, whatever, I don't believe you. It's my sister. She would never do that. So I kept it in. I just kept it in and kept it in until finally that sponge too much water in that sponge, and it just started pouring out in my life. And I was taking all this anger towards, ironically enough, females. I had a big issue with females because I lost all trust with them because of what I experienced. And as the universe has given me is opportunities to be a part of a community right now that 90% of people that support me are females. Now, if that's not a life lesson to be given, you don't want to trust females, but here you are in a community that you're going to learn to how to let things go and move on and think about better things in life outside of the hate that we've been taught through our younger years, through our own family.
Yeah, the one of the things I think the most proud of in my life, other than all the work that I've been very privileged to be a part of, is our daughter. Because for me, I was molested as a child, and then I was forced to have dinner with this individual from the time I was 9 to 12. My father would make me eat dinner with him, even though everyone at the table knew, and it was a very horrible time in my life. And when my daughter turned 9, I had that memory just kind of flush back of like, well, this was not me at 9. I didn't have such a great life at 9. My life was pretty terrible at 9. But I raised her to know that like her body is hers. And my daughter's so strong about how she feels about these things. It's kind of come to bite me in the butt a little bit, because at the doctor's office, she's like, you cannot touch me because I have body autonomy. And she's 14. And but that's the way
such a unique thing.
But she knows it, believes it in her
teaching.
core. Yeah, because we've talked about it. We've said like your body is yours, right? Nobody can touch you unless you give permission for that person to touch you, and that's it. But it's one of the things I'm proud of, because most people who go through abuse can't do that. They can't break the cycle. It's really difficult to break that cycle.
It really is, and that's why it's so important to have individuals like ourselves being vocal about it and talking about it, because it makes other people say to themselves, I'm not alone. I'm not alone with this.
Other people.
The buck stops here. It's going to stop with me. I'm not going to pass this on to my kids. I'm going to teach them about these things and how to look for these things. And it stops with me.
Exactly. And that's what you decide, and that's what led me to write this, because I wanted it to go with my mom. It sounds weird, but I used her as the casket to you just take this. I don't want it anymore. Your dad, I don't have to answer to you anymore. So you know what? You take the abuse. You take the pain. You take the PTSD. You take the trauma. I'm giving it to you. Take it away. I don't want it anymore.
That's getting deep for me now.
Yeah.
That's got to be such a tough thing. Now hearing a little bit more of your story and how your mother.
But using her for that was the best thing I could think of to do, because I was looking for a way out of this trauma. I couldn't seem to do it on my own. No matter how much therapy I was going to, no matter what I was doing, it still kept rearing its ugly head. And I was just like, what do I have to do to make these stupid thoughts go somewhere else? And so I was like, you take it. You go with
your mother.
Right. So you did this, you knew what was going on, right? So you take it. Right. You go answer for it to whoever it is out there. Because when you get to before hell, you're gonna have to answer to her what you did, not me. So you take it. And I went to hell, and I was like, look, I'm gonna give you my mom. She's flawed and imperfect. Take it. Take it away.
Get one out of here.
And so, it was very painful, and I cried a lot the night that I told Hel to take her, and I felt guilty about it. But Hel kind of came to me and said, don't worry about it. She's like, you know what? I'll do you even one better. And she put my family name, before I was married, my birth name in front of me and my last name, and she set it on fire. And she's like, we're done with that now. You're mine. Okay? So that was it. And I just felt like that was you're clean. You can go now. So it was a pivotal moment for me, and it helped me heal in tremendous ways.
Here in the comments here, this is for you, Larisa. Diana Roberts says, such a great show. Love hearing Larissa's story. Very inspirational.
Oh, thank you. I'm not very used to praise. I try to be a very humble person.
You get around, you'll get used to it if you're around us long enough, because that's all we do. I do not encourage meanness, nastiness. I don't encourage it at all. I'm all about uplifting it and supporting it as best as I can. And some days I'm human, some days I might not be so that guy with a big virtual hug. But my main mission is really just to I want everyone to feel that they're important in and whatever that takes. We're here to facilitate that. And like I said, as you heard right here in Diana's comment, it's your story has been very inspirational, and that's what it's about, right? You're inspiring others by talking about some of the things that most people wouldn't.
True, we do try.
It's a
So
lot.
I appreciate everybody's comments, and I have to say a special little shout out to my friend Susie, who's been messaging me through the show, being like, "You're doing great." She's been very encouraging.
Susie's
Thank you,
awesome.
Susie, so much for being so great to me. In the last month, she's been very supportive and helpful,
My
just
wife and
making
I
me
have
feel like
Susie
a good person.
for years.
Oh, that's how that's how we met for this show, was through Susie. She's like, I want you to. Would you mind interviewing an author? And I was like, no, because I've been wanting to for a while. I've interviewed quite a few people, and I don't think I've ever interviewed an author yet. Bands, people from all walks, but never an author yet.
Well, Susie's an amazing
You're
woman,
lying,
and I'm so
Fred.
glad to have met her.
Oh well, you're a co-host author though, but you're right.
We
Like,
started with an interview.
Super.
it starts with an interview, and next thing you know, she'll be on here doing shows with us. Miss
yeah, like-
says she's right. Susie's right. You're doing great.
Oh, thank you.
Susie Fulmer, she is. We'll be getting her book for sure. There we go. Like I said, we left the link here to the Facebook page, which you can find a link to their store on their Facebook page. But the link is going to be in the comments, and after the show, I'll be sure to leave it again. That way, you guys ain't got to dig so far into the show to get it. But before we go, Larissa, this is your moment to kind of give a shout out, tell everybody where they can go to find the book, your book, or others that you have under your published company as well.
Okay, and did you want me to talk about where I am? I know that you guys are like really curious about where I'm living right now. So coming to Hawaii was a huge dream. My husband and I wanted to retire somewhere tropical, and we found ourselves in love with the city of Honolulu and Oahu, which is one of the islands on the Hawaii chain. But where we live right now is a place called Makaha. And Makaha was actually named after one of the gods. And it's supposed to be a very holy valley. It's said that on the mountain range behind me, it's supposed to be the gateway to heaven. So they believe that spirits, when they die, run across the top of the mountain and leap off into the afterlife. So that's on one side of me. And then on the other side is a heiau, which is a spiritually important place. And that was where they have this temple to this god that used to run around these parts that was a cannibal god. So this valley is very sacred and means a lot to people. So we're kind of in a cradle of an old volcano. So it's been very interesting living here. The energy is really cool here. Hawaiian people are absolutely amazing here. Being this close to water has a lot of significance for me. Water is very healing to me. I'm a patient of lupus, so floating in salt water is very good for people like me. So we go at least once a week and float around the ocean. I've gotten the privilege of seeing beautiful giant sea turtles. It's an amazing place.
Lucky you.
Yeah, very, very lucky to live where we are.
I never thought that I could be jealous of where someone else lives
Right?
based on where I live. But hearing
Yeah.
Larissa talk about this,
And every day we walk around, like the gods are definitely here. We bought this house because when we were walking around the property on the second time, I saw Baba Yaga run straight past me towards this big tree, and she was like, "This is your place. Like, you need to come here." And so they've given us a lot of fortune and to be here. The property has done really well. The plants are coming in, so you can see like definitely the little whites are busy doing their thing. So we really feel a lot of privilege being here and taking care of the land that doesn't really belong to us, just borrowing it for a little bit and trying
We're
to.
sharing.
Yeah.
We're sharing. We're exchanging, or we should be exchanging.
Yeah, because in Hawaii, you definitely do not own the land. That's a very important thing when you're not Native Hawaiian. The land doesn't belong to you, so you're just borrowing it. But we try to be respectful to the communities around us, to the people that live here. We do a lot of community events with people. My husband donates all the fruit that's on the property to everybody. We just don't feel it's our privilege to share it with everybody. So we do that a lot too. And it's been really cool to live here and get a different vibe for life. So
I think the audience would like to know about the chickens arranging their own cockfights.
yeah, it's very interesting around here with the chickens. But yeah, like there's a whole lot of mythology around that. Somewhere time in the 1800s, a ship crashed with a whole bunch of chickens on it, and the chickens got loose on the island, and they've been here ever since. And so there's different variations of chickens because there are different varieties of chickens, but there's a very specific like tropical chicken, which kind of looks like hey from the movie Moana. It's like literally those colors, the bright red and orange, everything from that to like dark gray, even like the fuzzy feet chickens. But they have free reign of the island. They walk all over the place on everybody's lawn. We have a crossing every day of about 30 chickens back and forth between all the properties. So you'll see
Now,
them.
what country is that, or what city is it that has all the monkeys?
Isn't that somewhere in China or
I want to say like
India or something like that? They one of them. I know that like
the
monkeys are a
whole
big thing.
fucking
Yeah.
town is like full
Do
of
you guys
like
have
crowds.
primates in Hawaii?
We have them at the zoo, but like we don't. There's not a lot of animal species. Like there's a lot of birds. We have birds, chickens. There's some deer on Maui. We have like a type of duck and things like that. So there are some like variety of animal species, but there's no like pretty big predators or anything like that.
Yeah,
There's a
you
lot
guys
of
are a
overall-
dot out in the
Chickens are
middle
the
of the
predators.
ocean that sprang up from a volcano. So just about the only thing that is there is something that somebody has brought from somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And sharks, that's we have big giant white sharks. So I mean but it's a beautiful, magical place to live, and it gives one a lot of inspiration to walk around and get
But just that energy of
stories.
the formation
Yeah.
of the island chain itself, the volcanic activity, being in that Pacific Ring of Fire, the spirit there, the energy there has to be amazing.
No wonder she's able to juggle the company and writing books at the same time.
Yeah, you can kind of channel what it was like for ancient Nordic people to live, because this is pretty close to like what you would see in tribal living, because the people in Hawaii are still very close to, or at least not as far from, their original faith. Like they only converted around 1880-ish. So you'll see still a lot of original Polynesian gods, and the way they talk about the island, the way they live, like their word is mana, which means like life, and even like Oahu is like the mother. So like everything around them is also very animistic. So you can kind of see like, oh, if people had never been bothered by a single Christian monk, this was maybe what it would look like. So you kind of get to see like, it's been interesting for me because I'm like, oh, there's so many parallels to like, this is like Nordic mythology. This is exactly like, like they'll talk about something and I'm like, wow, that sounds like very much like Loki. Like, are they sure they're not talking about Nordic mythology? And then it's just because it's so close to and akin to what you would find there.
That's why I feel so fortunate to live here where I do in Appalachia, because it's so
Yeah, same thing, right?
inaccessible. So all of these very early communities, very early cultures have been able to maintain and keep hold of their roots and their traditions and rights and all those things that make them unique.
Yeah, and it gives you kind of an
Very
insight into what it would have been like to be there and see things before the Christians kind of got in there and mucked it up a bit. So like it's interesting to kind of like view that from a different lens and trying to see like the world in a different place. But you definitely feel a lot of responsibility to the island itself and a lot of the care and maintenance. And you do take a lot of effort to make sure that like you're not littering, you reduce your plastic waste. So like
That's animism.
really go right. It becomes like that's what I mean. Like it's an easy place to be an animist because everything about life here is worrying about the land. So like it just becomes like a natural part of living. But yeah, like so. Sorry, what did you want me to talk about? I kind of lost my mind. Kind of lost my mind in Hawaii for a minute
I
there.
think this is your opportunity
I think that's
to
an amazing thing to do.
give a shout out to the places that they can find your book, where they can find you
Okay.
on Facebook, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so if you're looking for the Three Little Sisters, you just type in the number 3 littlesisters.com and you'll hit our website where you can find every single social media link where we are. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, you name it, we're there. All of our books are available directly on our website, as well as all the retailers that you know about, like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all that jazz. This fall, I'll give people a little bit of inside info. This is something I've been kind of keeping under wraps. Even Susie doesn't know, and I was kind of tempting her with some little details earlier this week. But we have Maria Kulvahog, who's well known for writing The Seed of Yggdrasil, has graciously given us a publication that she just wrote called The Great Knowledge. And so that is going to reveal everything you ever want to know about Seath. So if you are really interested in that topic and you really want to understand Norse shamanism, Maria brings it like nobody's business. So the book is going to be 800 pages in length. It's bigger than Seed. And so this is a tome of a lifetime. So that's going to be coming this Christmas.
How exciting.
Yeah.
I'm planning to chomp on that.
Yeah, as well as she also gave us her permission to publish her hand-drawn comics. So you're going to see Maria Kulvahog's version of the Edda in comic book form.
Oh, now that's my jazz right there.
So those two are coming, and she's also given me some permission from other stuff, but I'm going to hold that to myself. And then Summoning the Bones is going to be coming out in October, which is the follow-up to Riding the Bones. And around that same time, we'll be opening up our website to a new experience where you'll be able to actually go and learn how to read runes, as well as the Ogham and tarot. So you can go learn different aspects from people within the company who have years of experience with this. You'll be able to take tutorials for free, learn about our decks in an effort to promote, like, for us, every dollar that I'm not here to shill for money, but every dollar that comes helps our authors. We actually take very little of the revenue for ourselves. So every purchase here helps an author. So when you buy a deck, it goes towards helping people like Maria continue writing and continue producing work that we all want. So if you're there and you're watching the apothecary videos that we're going to have, you'll see little ads for decks.
What a great idea to do that, though.
Yeah, and if you buy one, it helps promote. It helps us support our authors and our publishing house. So any effort to do that is greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
But you'll be able to do stuff on there and sign up for lectures as well with the death and dying subject matter as a focus. So you'll be able to take lectures on. We plan to do like Baba Yaga, Hel, the Morgan, some of the Celtic gods. We're going to get really into the weeds. So, and that will all be provided to you for free. So,
something to look forward to.
Check us out when we're coming in October. We'll be putting out announcements of when we launch little things over time. But yeah, that's our plan.
Go check them out. It's the number 3
littlesisters.com.
Be sure to go check out the website. Go follow them here on Facebook as well. You can keep up to date on what's going on. If you're doing a little bit of rebuilding on that, though, didn't you say? Or was it the website?
Embracing Heathenry, I am redoing because, like I said, it has a lot of quotes from bad people in there, like that we've come to realize should not be in this community for a variety of reasons. So I'm updating it, but I'm also updating it with new information because a lot of my opinions about my practices have changed. And I'm planning to bring a little bit more depth to it, but we're also planning on like a lot more serious when it comes to like subject matter. We have some books planned for writing about different kinds of magic, like runes, cam, but then also blood magic, some dark things, some light things. So we're kind of all over the place right now, but the point of our company is to just keep driving forward the living with intention. So every book will be an intentional practice built into it that you can follow at home.
Amazing. Larisa, thank you once again for hanging out with us tonight. It was a pleasure meeting you and learning a little bit about you.
Too.
We'd love to have you back on here in the near future again. Maybe when that new
Absolutely.
book comes out, we'll bring you back on and we'll talk about it.
Absolutely. I would
We'll
love
do a
to do
book
that.
release.
Yeah,
That would be amazing. I could actually send you guys a copy in advance of the release, probably. Because
don't tease us.
Well, we can, because I recently we changed from using Amazon because so many of our customers couldn't get books.
Need
And they
new reading.
Yeah, they stopped shipping things. Like, I don't know what happened, but anyway, in order to save all of our authors, we moved to Ingram, which is like the largest book distributor in the United States of America. So all of our books are now printed through there, but we get advance copies about 2 months in advance. So you'll see on our website occasionally we'll be able to launch pre-orders so that you can grab the book in advance of the public release. Yeah. But we'll make sure to give you guys advance copies. I'll get your addresses and send you along maybe one that has my signature in it and give you signed copies from me.
Oh.
Stop. We just going to get
So
signed
if you
out
have
of
like
that
direct questions the next time, then you can like read it and really interrogate me.
Yeah, this was your first visit with us. We were going nice on you.
Okay, well, next time you can bring it hard. No.
What just happened here?
I can take it.
Well, when me and Papa like to do the good cop, bad cop. I'm the good cop. Papa's the bad cop. That's what we'll do next time.
If I'm going to be the bad cop, then I'm going to come back to Fable.
Okay.
And anything that you pick up to read, please read to learn and get a lesson out of, or look for a lesson in it. Even if it seems simple and straightforward, there's a lesson in there somewhere. Even if it's somebody's story, Marissa's story, Larissa's story, there's going to be a lesson in there somewhere. If you read between the lines, pay attention. And I think it's one of the biggest things that are missed in Norse paganism, in the sagas and the Eddas. There's a lesson in everything. And I see that we're missing it because this almost monotheistic praise of Odin, and Odin has great qualities, but what you're missing in Norse paganism is the humanity, the relativity, and how these stories sync with us. They jive with us because the gods are like us. We see Loki do funky shit, but then he fixes it. He makes up for those mistakes, and he did that bad thing, but then he helps out. We think that Odin is the ultimate good, the ultimate god, the knowledge, the wisdom, the wit, but he's also a rapist and a murderer. I'm just going to be honest with you.
You're right.
If you read the stories, there's a theme of duality that plays out in Norse mythology that's relatable to us, and I think that's the biggest draw for people.
I am totally
You
twinning
connect
with
to it.
you right now, Papa. Like, it's unreal. You exactly said what I said about Odin directly, like same sentence. He's I did call him a rapist as well.
Well,
And
I mean, he admits it himself.
yes,
He admits it himself that he has raped women. He's murdered. He's tricked. He's worn masks. He's famous for wearing masks, disguising himself in trickery. But yet we think that Loki is the only one that does that, the only one that.
Where you think Loki got it from?
So
From
stop this idea that you come over from Christianity with good and bad, God and the devil, or God and Satan, or whatever, and get in touch with your human self, your real self, and see the duality in basically everything across the board of nature, the universe. Gununga Gap itself is the story of fire and ice, duality.
I have this thing in Embracing Heathenry I wrote that's called Taking Off the Need Goggles. But it was exactly that. It was seeing the gods for all their flaws too, but reminding ourselves that like flaws are what make us human, and like it's okay to have flaws. But the same thing, like you, it gets sometimes it's frustrating that people see like Odin as this big daddy. Like he's really not supposed to be that way.
They
He,
want
he
Odin to
is,
be Jesus.
or God. Yeah, like yeah, you're right. And he's not. Okay, so like he's just not. And Loki isn't Satan. So like they're just gods doing their thing, having fun, whatevs. And like,
If you have
you
the
gotta
power to
be
travel the universe, you have the power to do pretty much about whatever else you want
if
to.
you
And
change
there's
your
only
gender and give birth to horses, then why are we like,
so maybe the ultimate lesson is responsibility, self-responsibility, accountability, consequence is a big theme that plays out in Norse mythology. Accountability and consequence.
yeah, I agree.
Papa,
We could talk about
Get
that
that
for like
reading
hours,
in.
I'm sure.
don't want to get me started on this. I've been holding my tongue because I've been saying, well, some of the biggest problem with the Papa knows how I've said this a few times, that the Christianity versus paganism. You'll hear pagans talk about how Christians persecuted and killed pagans, but pagans has done it to themselves as well, and Christians has done it to themselves as well. I mean, this is not it shouldn't be about who's done what to us hundreds of years ago. I mean, that we've done it to ourselves. We've killed our own tribes to get land. I mean, there's pagans are known, or heathenry is raping and killing, and I
Oh
mean,
yeah, the tribes have always warred with each other over resources.
it's just
But we've come
it's
to a
a
time now
common
where
thing.
we have more than what we need. So let's just be kind to one another and
That's
enjoy
it.
it.
That's it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think for me, it's like comes down to like heathens just need to stop being so negative at people who are just trying to find their path. Like we all came here stumbling, okay, and we don't know everything, and there's no definitive answer to things. So there's no Pope of Asatru. So like, stop, and just let people figure it out for themselves. You
Stop
can help
judging.
them. Yeah, you can help them, give them sources, but like the Edda is not the only source, and there's a lot of material out there that can be really helpful to understanding the path. And for me, it was like Papa said, it's fable, it's folklore, it's reading the stories from their perspective, which was more like they're
It's
writing like their
awesome.
friends, right? Like so they're not gods necessarily, like gods. They're like gods next to you.
The gods and
So
the fact that their knowledge and wisdom of how we can successfully live our lives and coexist in peace.
I've always kind of looked at all these gods from different Greek to Norse paganism. I always looked at them kind of in a more of a modern way. I kind of look at them as comic book heroes, and that's where we've kind of evolved. The stories are not true. A lot of them are fables, but kind of the same idea with comic books nowadays. You got the hero, the villain, their stories being told. They've treated these characters in movies and comic books as gods, like Superman, for instance. They've considered him a god. I mean, you kind of look at these kind of like similar kind of way that the books back then were kind of like comic books in a sense. They created these characters that hold certain powers, certain strengths. That's how I've looked at it, at least.
Well, yeah, and you're exactly right because it all started as story. Before it was ever written down, it was stories. We passed them on orally. We told this story about this or this story about that as life lesson. And that's how we taught our kids because you can't exactly take them out and show them what happens if you push someone off a cliff, but you can tell them a story about it and they learn.
That's it.
exactly, and I totally agree with that. It's like I will say in closing that for me, when I developed this company and when I wrote all the books and whatever, what it came down to for me is that it was embracing who you are and defining yourself by your faith is extremely powerful. But it took a long time for me to get there. So understanding people and giving them space to like embrace who they are. Like for me, it was embracing my hagdom and saying, yes, I am a hag. I'm going to be a hag. That's what I am. I'm okay with that. I'm embracing it. I'm going for it. I'm all in at this point. But that was my path. But it took me a long time to get to that place. And I think each of us have to understand that when the young generation comes in, or when anybody comes into heathenry, they're not coming here to be like the guy who I met at the ritual who's like, okay, here's a list of 500. You're going to drive somebody away. Instead, have an honest conversation with them about like, what are you coming to look for? What is heathenry appealing to you? Because then you're going to pick off the people who came here looking for supremacy. That's number one. And then you're going to find the people that are sincerely trying to be here because this path is speaking to something in them that's missing. And when you find that thing and you tap into it, you really find people that you can bond with and are supposed to be here. And those are the people that the gods led here. So like you have to give them space to do that and ask them questions instead of just throwing them at sources, because that doesn't really help anybody. I've had so
Great advice.
I've had so many privileges in life, but when I went to this lecture a while ago and I was talking about this book and Dread Sisterhood, I said something about the goddesses don't care about your gender. Well, the gods don't either, because gender is fluid. And this person in the chat who is trans said, oh my God, you just spoke to me, because they haven't felt like they had a place. And I was like, I don't understand why we as a community do not rally around and seeing that as a problem. Like instead, we look at it as like, well, they can't be in women's spaces and they can't be in men's spaces because they're neither. Well, like, so what? Who cares? What sense?
That's it. Who cares? I've never understood why we've had this fascination with sexualizing
Everyone's
kids.
like body parts. Like, who cares?
So now suddenly this god has to be this way, or this god has to be this way, or this deity has to be this way. I think they're a little above that. I don't think they have a great interest in who we decide to invite to our bedroom.
Yeah, and to me,
But we're so hung up on sexualizing the gods.
Yeah, and that's what the Three Little Sisters is trying to do, is fill that void, because there's no one right now speaking to people who are trying to find a community that is intersectional, that is going to include everyone from every range into a place that's safe for them to express themselves and safe for them to explore their spirituality without criticism, without constant feeling like you have to do this or an XYZ. You don't have to do anything. And all we're trying to do is give you a way to like look at the sources and be like, the next time someone comes up to you and says you have to do X, you could be like, well, actually, in in this particular archaeological find, I don't know if you've heard of it, but they kind of did this other thing, so I don't know. Like, it's just to give you like counter, to be like, feel that you can find a path that works for you and that you can speak up and speak in some kind of truth without feeling like you have to battle everything every 5 minutes. So that's our like goal, is to try to give a good foundation for you to fight from.
Nice. Great advice, though, too. Papa, we're going to do something a little different tonight, buddy.
What's that?
You want to do the closing for tonight's show?
Sure.
There we
You
go.
do it.
You got it. It's in your hands. And before he says
All
goodbye,
right.
stick with you guys, Rex, because we got one more video to play. It's a new song by In This Moment, The Purge. Papa, take it away.
I'll give it my best here. As Sid just said, hang around. We've got another video for you tonight. I want to thank Larisa for coming on, spending a little more time tonight with us than maybe what was promised to her at the get-go. We usually try to keep it in an hour, but we've had such a great conversation tonight. It just flowed. We had so much stuff. And again, would love to have you back on the show to talk some more, especially if we can link it up with the new book release. Throw that out there, promote that. But thank you guys for hanging out with us, tuning in, your conversation in the live chat, your participation, all in all. And again, thank you, Larisa, for your time and your conversation and all that you've brought and shared with everybody tonight.
Yes,
Thank
you
you
very much.
guys so much. It's been really a privilege, and thank you, Susie, for introducing us because Papa, you're speaking my language. So glad to meet you, and I hope to have more conversations. And I'm so thankful to have met you too, Sid. It's been really amazing to meet people of like mind. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you once again, Larissa. And you guys, thanks for tuning in tonight. We'll leave you guys with one last song. This is In This Moment, their new song, The Purge. You guys have a great night, and we'll catch you next Wednesday. Until then, guys, be safe and be well.
Evening, everyone. Dean from King Voodoo, and you're watching Talking with Demons. Be more voodoo.
Let me go, and if you cry, I don't care how long you take.